Welcome everyone to the Fusion Cup Meta Simplified guide, and in this video I will break down the Fusion Cup meta into specific groups and subgroups and talk about their strengths and weaknesses. This is my personal opinion on the Fusion meta, and I have divided the meta into 6 different categories. These are namely Flyers, Steels, Fire, Mud Boys, Grass, and Fairy. And now there are many other subgroups which I have tagged them as wildcards, and I think Fusion Cup probably has the most amount of wildcards in any featured cup I've seen. Let's get into the matchups. Now first I would like to talk about the PV Poke ranked 1 Altaria. Being a dragon flying type, it is 4 times weak to ice, but with dragon breath and sky attack it devastates the meta. Altaria can beat out the fire types, it hardballs the grass type, and it can also beat the mud boys depending on shields and whatnot. I will get to that on later, but Altaria and Noctowl, I think they are probably the strongest mons in this group. Against any grass types, Altaria can hardball them. Sludge Bomb does quite a bit of damage to Altaria, but still Altaria can handle tank 1 and just farm down Venusaur. And against the Mud Boys, now Mud Boys I think are a bit of iffy. Like Altaria can beat Quagsire and Swampert straight up. It beats Quagsire, although Stone Edge is super effective. It can beat Quagsire straight Sky Attack. Now you don't really need Dragon Pulse that much, but still I suggest keeping that in case you are in a be all end all situation. But Whiscash is it's iffy because Whiscash, although here Gates can KO Altaria straight with Blizzard, but it can go straight Blizzard. So Altaria can beat the Mud Boys, but Altaria does lose to Whiscash, so I guess Whiscash can be called the king of the meta. It's debatable. I will not get into that, but Altaria does lose to Whiscash. But in that case, Noctowl can actually tank a Blizzard and get enough energy to land a Sky Attack and win, because Noctowl isn't 4 times weak to Blizzard, and Noctowl is just so bulky that it can tank a Blizzard. So here against Whiscash, Noctowl is a better pick, but in all other groups I prefer Altaria, because Altaria in general you can use Altaria as a safe switch in, you can use Altaria as a lead in any position. Altaria is just that good. Now against the fire types, against Charizard I am running the Fire Spin variant of the Charizard, because in this cup, although Air Slash is good, but this cup has many ice types and steel types. Although Air Slash Charizard has better matchups versus Whiscash, but I believe that Fire Spin is the way to go, because versus steel types, if you are running Air Slash, it becomes a shielding thing, and Charizard is just so frail. Just run Fire Spin, trust me, it's better. So Fire Spin, Blast Burn, Dragon Claw. Altaria handily beats Charizard, and for reference I'm going to run Air Slash Charizard just in case, and still Altaria wins with 21 HP, and Altaria can do a lot of damage to the incoming mount with just 21 HP. But Altaria does win, it just loses against fairies. For context, I will run Ninetales, Alolan Ninetales, and versus the Charm variant, Charm Alolan Ninetales can just farm down Altaria without throwing any charge moves and have a whole without showing charge moves, Alolan Ninetales actually wins more. 901 points, that is not even funny. It beats Altaria in all chilling scenarios. Even if Altaria has energy advantage, Alolan Ninetales can just charm down Altaria. But if another set I would suggest is the Powder Snow versus Powder Snow, Alolan Ninetales still wins, but Powder Snow is kind of an iffy matchup. Powder Snow has kind of iffy matchup versus other mons. I will get to that later, I promise guys. But Altaria just straight up loses to Charm, but against Steel, Alolan Sand Slash is probably Altaria's greatest counter. With Powder Snow and Ice Punch, it just charges Ice Punch so fast. You can just Ice Punch, and see, Powder Snows are doing so much damage that one Ice Punch is doing 84 damage to Altaria. That's crazy. Damn, even I didn't know that. And you feign down Altaria, but versus Bronzong, Altaria still loses. Bronzong with Confusion, Side Shock, and Bulos, this is a standard set, and Altaria does lose. So Altaria and Noctowl strong against grass types, strong against mud boys except for Cash, only for Altaria, strong against fire types but weak to steel and fairy. And I would like to show Noctowl's matchups versus Bronzong a bit, because the suggested set is Wing Attack, Sky Attack, Psychic. With the Psychic buff, Psychic is just that good, but in most situations just go for Sky Attack. But if you are running Nightshade, you can go for Nightshade. Nightshade isn't really an energy efficient move, but still Bronzong wins. Even if you land 1 or 2 Nightshades, it does win. But in the zero shields, it is a CMP tie, so that's that. So you can run both Psychic or Nightshade with Sky Attack. And Noctowl versus the Fairies, it's not as bad as Altaria, but against Wigglytuff in the one shield, Noctowl does lose. Wigglytuff has 25 HP left, and versus Alolan Ninetales, the Charm variant, Noctowl can pull off a win, but it's an IV thing, and I would not suggest running this matchup. And versus the Powder Snow variant, Alolan Ninetales wins even harder. So yes, and last thing I would like to show is versus Noctowl's matchup versus Togekiss. Now Togekiss with Charm, Ancient Power, and Flamethrower, it's not that consistent because it does lose to Noctowl and a lot of other things. But if Togekiss can farm out your Altaria, any Charm user can. It can Flamethrower the upcoming mon. So if you have a Steel type in your team, like a Bronzong or Alolan Sandslash, Togekiss can just Flamethrower it, even grass types. So it does have some threat to it. But still, Togekiss isn't as consistent as Wigglytuff and Alolan Ninetales. So in the Flyer group, Altaria, Noctowl. Now the most important matchup of the Flyer group is Noctowl versus Altaria. Now in this matchup, Altaria wins, but look at that. Noctowl has a Sky Attack charged. It is kind of an IV thing, but let's give Noctowl some energy. One Wing Attack generates 7 energy, so let's just give it suppose 14 energy. So here Noctowl actually, no, not this. With 14 energy, Noctowl actually wins and has 12 HP left. Even with maximum IVs, let's max both of their IVs. You do need max IV Altaria and Noctowl for this matchup, and if you maximize IVs, it's basically the same, so there's no breakpoint or block points here. But energy, if 1 or 2 wing attacks advantage, and Noctowl wins the matchup. So you can say Noctowl is the king of the flyers because number one, it doesn't lose to Whiscash and it kind of beats Altaria, but Noctowl isn't as deadly because Noctowl is kind of dependent on his charge moves, and if your opponent shields both sky attacks, Noctowl can go down. But with Altaria, Dragon Breath does so much damage, and Sky Attack is just so energy efficient that it is a huge threat. Moving on to the Mud Boys, and the best Mud Boy is just Whiscash because, as I mentioned earlier, with just Blizzard, Whiscash you can go back to back Blizzard and KO Altaria. You can go for shield bait, but I prefer going back to back Blizzards, and you can just tank the Sky Attack here. And Whiscash just so deadly. And now Whiscash is a really good bodyguard to the Flyers because they beat Steel types and they beat Fairy types to some extent. Not that good matchups, but still. But the weakness of Mud Boy is grass. All grass straight up beats them. I will not go into their matchups individually, but versus Fairy type, Whiscash does lose. So Fairy is looking stronger than you thought, right? Beating Whiscash here, and if you look at Quagsire, it's probably the same. Yeah, it's probably the same ability of beating Quagsire. And versus Swampert, even though Hydro Cannon is nerfed, but Swampert is good in such a way because Swampert does beat the Mud Boys. It can just go straight Hydro Cannon and beat both Mud Boys. Now here Whiscash does get off a Blizzard, but if you can shield that Blizzard, Swampert wins with 46 HP left if you call out the bait. And you can be sure that Swampert can get off another Hydro Cannon when the next one comes. So Swampert not really looking that good because of the Hydro Cannon nerf, but it does possess some threat. And now the Mud Boys straight up beat the fire types, but versus Charizard and Whiscash is a bit iffy. Blast Burn and Dragon Claw. Now Wing Attack, Dragon Claw overhit Charizard. I am thinking about that, but still I prefer the Blast Burn one. Now here Whiscash does win by landing the Blizzard, but if it doesn't land the Blizzard, again I will go into sandbox mode and shield this attack and not shield this attack. But if they can call out the bait, here Charizard has 33 HP left and a Blast Burn and Dragon Claw charged. So Whiscash versus Charizard is kind of bait dependent, so don't rely on that, and all Mud Boys straight up beat Marowak and Blaziken. And now versus the Steel types, they do beat it quite hard. Now Bronzong is said to be the strongest steel type, and Whiscash just mauls Bronzong. 82 HP left, just go for straight Mud Bomb. And versus Swampert. Swampert, you have to land the Earthquake, but if you do not have Earthquake, you can go straight Hydro Cannons versus Bronzong and still have 40 HP left. Although Bronzong has nearly Psyshock charge, but I don't think this will be a great issue because Confusion is slower. The animation is so slow that it's not a big deal. But one Confusion faster, it will get to a Psyshock, but still you can just go for straight Hydro Cannons. Now Swampert does lose to the Flyers, but now this is the matchup I wanted to show you. If Swampert is running Sludge Wave and Hydro Cannon, you can just bait Sludge Wave and KO Wigglytuff. In the 0 and 1 shields, you actually win versus Wigglytuff. Now versus Ninetales, you can do the same thing. Normally Swampert would lose, but with Sludge Wave it can beat the Fairy types. Now if I am suggesting this only if you're very scared of the Fairy types. Otherwise Earthquake is better in general for a nuke. As a nuke, you can nuke Steel types, you can nuke Fire types. You don't need to nuke the Fire types, you can just go for Hydro Cannon. But Sludge Wave looking spicy. Now if I go for the Pyro Snow Alolan Ninetales, Swampert wins even harder. So here you actually need Charm Ninetales to take down the Mud Boys better. It's not that Pyro Snow Ninetales would lose against the Mud Boys, it's just that Charm is kind of a better move versus Mud Boys. So that's that. And now moving on to the Fire types, and first and foremost I would like to talk about Alolan Marowak, because to me Alolan Marowak is a really good mon. Like, I have used Alolan Marowak in as many cups there was, and I have just loved using Alolan Marowak. Now you need Alolan Marowak as a bodyguard to both Mud Boys and the Flyers, because the Fairy types actually beat the Mud and the Flyers and the Steels. So you run Fire types as the bodyguard of Flyers and Grass to some extent to beat out Fairy and Steel, to hard counter Fairies and Steels. Now here Alolan Marowak with Fire Spin, Shadow Ball, Bone Club, it just farms out Alolan Ninetales. This part of Snow, just give Charm. Alolan Marowak still wins because Fire actually resists Fairy damage. So here Alolan Marowak is just looking really good. And now versus the Steel types, this is important. Versus Bronzong, Alolan Marowak does win, but you do need to shield the Bulldoze. And you don't really have to land the Shadow Ball. You can go straight Bone Clubs, I think. Yes, you can go straight Bone Clubs and come out with 44 HP. Now here Bronzong does have a Psyshock charged, but that Psyshock will not KO you even if Bronzong reaches it. So one thing you can do is charge up to 2 Bone Clubs and go for back-to-back Bone Clubs. Fire Spin would do most of the damage. And I do suggest running Fire Spin Marowak to farm out Fairies, namely the Ice Fairies like Ninetales and the other Ice types and the Grass types. But you can run Hex Marowak. It's not really a bad set, but Running Hex, you cannot farm the grass types. And now versus Venusaur, Marowak does win, but Marowak just wins with Bone Club. Straight Bone Club in the 0, 1 and 2 most shielding scenarios does win. Just go for Bone Club, and the other grass types are the same. And another steal I would like to talk about is Probopass. Now Probopass here it's suggesting Spark, Rock Slide, Magnet Bomb. I will get onto the details later, but with Spark, Rock Slide, Marowak can win. But here you can see that Probopass has a Rock Slide charged. Now Spark does 2, Spark generates 8 energy, so just with 1 Spark, if Probopass is just 1 Spark ahead, Probopass beats LOL Marowak and has 35 energy left. If Probopass is just 1 Spark ahead, so you can go for back-to-back Rock Slides, you can go for QSA, you just need 1 extra Spark to get it, and you can beat LOL Marowak. And versus the Rock variant, I will reset the counters. Versus the Rock variant, again Marowak wins, but the win is closer. You can see LOL Marowak wins with just 5 HP left. So Hero Range was suggesting running Rock Slide to make LOL Marowak and a few other matchups a surefire thing, but I personally prefer running Spark because I have talked about this in other videos. I prefer energy generation over fast move damage, although I do sometimes take fast move damage like Victory Bell and Charm 9 deals. So that's that. And versus Alone on Sandslash, it's just nothing Alone Marowak can just do. Now moving on to Charizard with Blast Burn and Dragon Claw. Probopass will just maul Charizard, but versus Bronzong, Charizard can win. You do not have to land the bait, I think I'm not sure. Yes, you can go for straight Dragon Claws and still win, but you come out with 11 HP left, and Bronzong has a Psyshock charged, so I will not suggest that. Try to go for a Blast Burn bait. And Charizard can win against Bronzong in the 0 and 1 shielding scenarios. Versus Probopass, Charizard doesn't really have anything to do here. Probopass will just go for Rock Slide, and going for Rock Slide will KO you. And if Probopass has Rock Throw, Probopass can just farm you out without using any charge move and can devastate your next one's Burning Shield. So Charizard, although has better matchup versus Whiscash, while Marowak does lose to Whiscash, but still here if you Shield a Blizzard, Charizard just wins. But Charizard does lose to Probopass, which Alolan Marowak kinda wins. It's situational, but it kinda wins against Probopass. Probopass doesn't really wall Alolan Marowak, but it does wall Charizard. So these are the major differences between Charizard and Marowak. And now I would like to talk about one other fire type that isn't really a fire type and more of a counter user, that is Blaziken. Now Blaziken will straight up lose to Fairies and Mud and the other fire types, but versus Steel, it's kind of a sure win. It can just farm out Probopass. It can farm out Probopass and have so much energy here. You can see that it has 84 HP left, and three more counters, and it has another Blaziken charged. So Blaziken, you can use Blaziken as a fighter like Breloom, but it's iffy. Blaziken's matchups are really very limited, but if you are scared of Probopass, Blaziken might be the way to go. And versus the fairy types, it just loses because Charm does so much damage. Blaziken can't do really anything. It does win in the Zero Shield though, but I don't call that a win because Blaziken, I believe that you need to be very skilled in order to use Blaziken. And that's that. Now moving on to the important types are the fairy types. Now fairies are so important because fairies, number one, can farm out Altaria, and fairies can beat Noctowl, so fairies have the flyers in check. Although it does lose to Noctowl, but still in the Zero Shields, in the one shield it does win. And fairies does beat the Mud Boys. So fairies are so strong because they beat two of the strongest groups in the fusion meta, namely the flyers and the mud. And the hard counters of fairies are steel types and fire types, but you can use grass types to counter fairy because of their poison subtyping. Venusaur with just straight frenzy plant will win against your fairy types, but you use fairy types to farm out Altaria, mainly Altaria or any mud boy, and then you have enough charge move, enough energy to use charge move to devastate the next one. Here Togekiss comes in. With Togekiss, as I have mentioned earlier, you have Flamethrower. You can devastate the steel types and the grass types to some extent, but in general grass types do beat the fairy types, and the fire types and the steel types, as I've mentioned before, just walls the fairies. So fairy win against flyers, mud, loses against grass, steel and fire, but fire kinda iffy. Moving on to the grass types. Now grass types are, at first I didn't think that they weren't that good, but after researching about the meta, I realized that they counter two key groups in this cup, and they are fairy and mud. Now fairies beat flyers, fairies beat mud, and suppose you're carrying one fairy, you use it to beat Altaria and Noctowl, or Noctowl and your fairy is low. Whiscash comes in and just farms out your fairy type on and has enough energy loaded to devastate anyone. This is where grass types comes in. Grass types mainly fulfill the role of countering the mud boys, but it does have the subtyping to win against the fairies. So versus Alolan Ninetales, Venusaur again, it wins, but with Powder Snow Ninetales, Venusaur does lose, and the one shield is a CMP tie. So if you QSA with your Powder Snow Ninetales again, you can win versus Venusaur, but it's not a surefire thing. But if you run Powder Snow Ninetales, you pick up the grass types, but you kinda lose. But then Mud Boys become a shielding thing. So it's your personal preference of running powder snow or charm. I suggest running charm, but if you can work with powder snow, you surely can work out with powder snow, but charm is more of a surefire thing. But yes, and the major counter for Venusaur is, I guess, Bronzong and the fire types. I will not even get into the flying types. Bronzong can just farm out Venusaur. It doesn't even need to throw that Psyshock. It can just farm out Venusaur and have over a bulldoze charged. And Alolan Sandslash can do the same, but Probopass with its rock typing, although it CMP ties with Venusaur. So if you have energy advantage on your Venusaur, you can win. You can spam Frenzy Plant to win against the Probopass. Against a Spark Probopass, let's try the Rock Throw one. And against the Rock Throw one, 0 shield is a loss, and 1 shield, again, it's a CMP tie. So not really great, but Probopass, it's because Probopass has Rock and Steel typing, and it's neutral to Frenzy Plant. Neutral Frenzy Plants will do lots of damage to Probopass. That's why it is so. Probopass being the only Steel that kinda ties with grass types, but the others, Alolan Sandslash and Bronzong, they just win. And Venusaur and Victreebel are kind of the same. Venusaur for shield burning, Frenzy Plant, Victreebel for fast move damage, both really good. I recommend both. But Executor, I don't know, it's kind of a meme. It does beat Venusaur with its confusion damage, and it beats Victreebel. So it beats up the grass types, but it doesn't really do well against the fairies. Here you can see that Wigglytuff can just charm down Executor and have Ice Beam and clear off charge. And with Ninetales, it's kind of the same. So Executor, although winning against grass poisons and mud to some extent, I will not suggest using Executor. But Venusaur, Victreebel, recommended. Beat mud, beat fairy. Lose steel, lose fire, and flyers I will not even mention. Now moving on to the last and most important group is the steel types. Bronzong. Bronzong is so important because it beats both Altaria and Noctowl with its steel subtyping and confusion damage. You can just go for straight Psyshocks and Altaria loses. But here in the 0 shield, Altaria actually wins with just Dragon Breath and Sky Attack damage. You're seeing this, right? So keep that in mind. With Bronzong, you need 1 shield to win, or 1 extra confusion, because you can see that confusion is nearly charged. So if you have 1 confusion advantage over Altaria in the 0 shield, you can win. So either QSA or go for back-to-back Psyshocks if you can. But in the 1 shield, it just wins. Versus Noctowl, it's kind of the same. With Psychic Noctowl, Bronzong wins even harder. Go for Psyshock, and you can see that here that Bronzong has almost another Psyshock and nearly half a Bulldoze charge, although Altaria has a Sky Attack charge, but this Sky Attack will not KO Bronzong. So Bronzong beating Noctowl harder, and this is why Altaria is so important. This is why I prefer Altaria over Noctowl, although Noctowl can win versus Whiscash, which Altaria does lose. Now, another important match is versus Alolan Sandslash. Now here Bronzong does win. it tanks a bulldoze, but Bronzong has to land a bulldoze. If it doesn't land a bulldoze, it can't win against Alolan Sandslash. So Alolan Sandslash with a bit of energy can threaten you, but it's kind of a surefire thing. Now versus Probopass, I will run the Spark and Thunderbolt variant because this is kind of a steel matchup. You can win with Bulldoze, but if Probopass shields the Bulldoze, doesn't get shield baited. Bronzong, it's iffy. I would not suggest that. So Bronzong versus Probopass, again Bronzong takes the win. So in the steel group, I guess Bronzong, you may call Bronzong as the strongest steel type, the game of steel type. Steels in general beats fairies, they beat grass, they beat flyers, they only lose to mud and fire. So people are saying that mud Cash is the king, Altaria is the king, but my opinion is Bronzong is the king because Bronzong can beat fairies, grass, flyers, and threaten fires with bulldoze. So it beats 3 of the major groups, and it only losing to mud and fire. So personal opinion, don't get offended by this. And that was it, and this is most of the overview of the meta. And if you want more in-depth matchups and matchmakings with other variety of mons, you can comment down on my video and which group you would like to see more in-depth on. So this was it. This was almost, I think I covered almost every mon I think is meta. And if some new mons surface around, like Community Day Empoleon, I will do a separate video on that later. And this was it. Hope you liked my video. Hope you learned some matchups, and keep practicing. And to practice, I would suggest you build team of 6s and then practice. Don't go with random ones against your opponent like other cups or stuff. Build a team of 6, make a specific core, and the strongest core is I think the Altaria, Bronzong, and Whiscash core. Now you can build teams around that. You can build teams to beat that, to C-team that, and you can try out so many combinations in this cup. I'm loving Fusion myself. I believe it's a fantastic cup. So build team of 6, practice a lot, memorize the matchups, and you hope you become victorious in your next tournament. This was Bhuvan Ahmed with the Fusion Cup Meta Simplified Guide, signing out.